Imagine holding in your hand a piece of American history that has been passed from generation to generation, a coin that on the surface seems ordinary, but beneath its simple copper-nickel composition carries a story of art, politics, economy, and cultural identity. This is the story of the 1981 Jefferson nickel, a coin that belongs to one of the most recognized and longest-running series in United States. Coinage history, the Jefferson nickel series introduced in 1938 has been a cornerstone of American change for decades, and by the time the 1981 issue was struck, it had already carried the image of the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, for over 40 years. Yet what makes the 1981 nickel stand out is not just its place in a long line of production, but the deeper context of its creation, the state of the U.S. Mint, at the time the economic conditions of the country, the evolving role of coinage in commerce, and the numismatic traits that collectors still study. To this day, to fully appreciate the 1981 Jefferson nickel, we must begin with its origins. The design created by sculptor Felix Schlag, who won the 1938 design competition, remained largely unchanged through 1981. His obverse portrait of Jefferson, with a left-facing profile and his reverse featuring Monticello Jefferson's Virginia home, was selected for its simplicity, strength, and resonance with national pride. In 1981, the United States Mint continued to produce this design as part of its circulation coinage without dramatic alteration, but the year was significant for other reasons in numismatic terms and in broader American history. The composition of the 1981 Jefferson nickel remained the same as it had since 1946, a copper nickel, alloy consisting of 75% copper and 25% nickel, chosen for durability and resistance to wear. This was essential because nickels circulated heavily in everyday commerce, in vending machines, in bus fare, and in daily retail transactions. The diameter was 21.2 millimeters, and the weight was 5 grams, specifications that remained unchanged across decades and made the nickel a dependable coin for the American public. But if the physical aspects of the 1981 nickel were consistent, the minting conditions of the time were not. The U.S. Mint operated multiple facilities, most notably Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. In 1981, the Philadelphia Mint struck coins without a mint mark, while Denver coins bore the D mark and San Francisco struck proof. Issues with the S mint mark collectors today value the differences between these issues, the sharpness of strike, the presence of proof qualities, and the variations in condition that distinguish a well-preserved coin from one that has been heavily circulated. In 1981, the economy of the United States was undergoing stress. Inflation was a persistent issue, and interest rates were historically high. This economic backdrop affected the way Americans viewed money and coinage, while paper currency increasingly dominated large transactions. Coins remained central to small-scale exchanges. The nickel had a practical importance that cannot be overlooked. It was a coin that bridged the gap between the penny and the dime, and as such, it had a constant presence in every pocket and cash register across the country. The mintage figures of the 1981 Jefferson nickel are also revealing, with hundreds of millions of coins produced at both Philadelphia and Denver. The 1981 issue was not a rarity at the time, but as decades passed, attrition, circulation, and loss reduced the number of high-grade specimens surviving in pristine condition today. This makes mint state and proof examples from 1981 particularly desirable to numismatists who seek out coins with strong luster, clean fields, and sharp strikes. Beyond the technical production, we must look at the artistry and symbolism that the coin carried. Jefferson's portrait served as a reminder of the nation's founding principles, his role in drafting the Declaration of Independence, and his vision for an agrarian democracy. The reverse Monticello not only honored Jefferson's home, but stood as an emblem of architecture, culture, and innovation in American history in 1981 as the nation prepared to enter a decade of change. These images on the nickel reinforced a sense of continuity with the past, while also serving as everyday reminders of American identity. Collectors Examining the 1981 Jefferson nickel also find interest in varieties and errors struck off center, doubled, die reverses, filled mint marks, or planchet flaws. Each error tells a story of the minting process and carries a premium in value for specialists who devote their study to Jefferson nickels, in particular proof. Coins from San Francisco in 1981 represent a peak of craftsmanship with mirror-like fields, frosted devices, and presentation-quality strikes that set them apart from circulation strikes. As time moved forward, the Jefferson nickel would eventually undergo redesigns, most notably beginning in 2004 with the Westward Journey series, and then with the 2006 return to a forward-facing Jefferson portrait. But in 1981, the design was stable and unchanged, part of the enduring consistency of mid-20th century coinage in the United States. This makes the 1981 nickel a fascinating study piece. It reflects both stability and subtle variation within the greater arc of numismatic history. So when you hold a 1981 Jefferson nickel, you are not simply holding a coin. You are holding a piece of 1980s America, a symbol of a turbulent economy, a reminder of Jefferson's legacy, and a continuation of a design that had been familiar to Americans for generations. To craft a 2-hour exploration of this coin, we would trace its origins, its minting process, its economic context, the role of coinage in daily life, its varieties and errors, its place in the broader Jefferson nickel series, and its legacy for modern collectors. It is a journey through artistry, economy, history, and collecting passion, all contained within the simple 5-cent piece that most people overlook. Yet for those who study it, the 1981 Jefferson nickel is anything but ordinary. Imagine holding in your hand a small piece of American history, a coin that has been passed from pocket to pocket, from generation to generation, carrying with it the weight of national identity and the story of a nation in constant change. Today, we dive deep into the world of the Jefferson nickel, focusing on the 1958 coin, a piece that may seem ordinary to the untrained eye, but in reality it tells a rich and fascinating story, stretching back decades to its creation and even further into the history of American coinage and culture. The Jefferson nickel series began in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel and featuring the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States. Designed by Felix Schlag, the coin was meant not only to honor Jefferson, but also to represent the values he stood for: innovation, independence, and the vision of a young republic. By 1958, the design had already been in circulation for 2 decades, but this year carried its own significance, both in terms of the minting process and in the broader historical context of America during the late 1950s. To understand the 1958 Jefferson nickel, we must first step back and consider the era in which it was struck. Post-World War II America was booming. The economy was strong, suburban life was expanding, the Cold War was in full swing, and American culture was being reshaped by everything from rock and roll to the space race. Coins during this period were more than just money. They were symbols of stability and continuity. While so much else in society was rapidly changing, the 1958 nickel was minted at both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint, with no mint mark for Philadelphia issues, and a small D mint mark on the reverse. Of coins struck in Denver, the mintage figures reveal that over 17 million nickels were produced in Philadelphia, and over 168 million at Denver, making the Denver coin by far the more common issue of the year. But sheer numbers alone do not capture the nuances of these coins. Collectors know that quality, rarity, and subtle design elements make all the difference in understanding the true story of a particular year. The Jefferson nickel of 1958 was struck on a standard planchet composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, with a diameter of 21.2 millimeters and a weight of 5 grams. The obverse features Jefferson's left-facing bust, his hair tied back in a simple queue designed to capture a sense of neoclassical dignity. Above his head runs the inscription, "In God We Trust," to the left. Along the rim is the word "Liberty," followed by the date 1958. written in Schlag's distinct script. The reverse displays the image of Monticello Jefferson's Virginia home with its distinctive dome, a powerful representation of Jefferson's role. As both statesman and architect, above is the word e pluribus unum, and around the rim we see the words United States of America and 5 cents. What makes the 1958 issue especially interesting to collectors are the strike qualities and variations. Because of heavy use of dies at the mints during this time, many coins from this year exhibit weak strikes, particularly in the details of Jefferson's hair and the steps of Monticello. This gives rise to one of the most sought-after designations. In Jefferson nickel collecting the full steps, designation a coin is said to have full steps if all 6 steps of Monticello are clearly defined without breaks or interruptions. Very few 1958 nickels qualify for this designation, especially from the Philadelphia Mint, making such coins rare and valuable in high grades for collectors. The grading of Jefferson nickels is crucial. Uncirculated examples from 1958 can range dramatically in price depending on luster strike and step detail coins. That show full steps at the highest grades are scarce and can fetch prices many times greater than standard mint state examples. Errors and varieties also add depth to the history of the 1958 nickel. Collectors have identified repunched mint marks and minor die variations that make certain examples particularly appealing to specialists. Such varieties often go unnoticed in circulation, but once discovered they become prized within the numismatic community beyond its technical details. The 1958 Jefferson nickel must also be seen in the broader cultural context of American life at the time. 1958 was the year NASA was created, following the launch of Sputnik by the Soviet Union. It was the year Elvis Presley was drafted into the U.S. Army. It was a time of growing prosperity, but also of heightened Cold War tensions. Every nickel minted that year was a small piece of metal circulating in a society on the cusp of transformation. The 1958 coin also represents the twilight years of the early Jefferson nickel design. Within just a few years, changes to the minting process and modifications in die preparation would alter the appearance of these coins, making the late 1950s issues a kind of bridge between the earlier war era nickels and the later more modern strikes. When we study the 1958 nickel, we are not only learning about the coin itself, but also about the artistry of Felix Schlag, the craftsmanship of mid-20th century, minting the economic realities of the United States in the post-war era and the cultural heartbeat of a nation standing at a crossroads. Numismatics at its best is about far more than cataloging dates and mintages. It is about telling stories, and the 1958 Jefferson nickel is a story worth telling in great detail, a coin that in its simplicity carries echoes of Jefferson's ideals, the skill of engravers and minters, and the countless hands through which it passed, as it played its small role in the daily life of millions of Americans. From grocery counters to gas stations, from school lunches to jukeboxes, the Jefferson nickel of 1958 has been part of the rhythm of American life and continues to captivate collectors today with its challenges of grading its rare full step examples and its place in the timeline of 20th century coinage. This story is not just about metal and numbers. It is about history, identity, and the enduring fascination of coins that connect us to our past. The Jefferson nickel of 1958 is more than just a 5-cent piece. It is a time capsule, a reminder of an America filled with both confidence and uncertainty, a coin that continues to shine in the eyes of collectors and historians alike. And in this journey, as we peel back each layer of its story, we discover that even the smallest coin can carry the biggest history. Imagine holding in your hand a piece of American history that not only represents 5 cents in value, but also carries the weight of a nation's struggles, triumphs, and transformations. The Jefferson nickel of 1940 is far more than a small coin. Struck in nickel and copper, it is a symbol of an era, a reflection of the United States as it stood on the brink of global conflict, and a continuation of a design that had already begun to carve its place in numismatic history. The story of the 1940 Jefferson nickel begins with its origins just a year after the first issue in 1938, when the United States Mint replaced the long-running Buffalo nickel with a new design honoring the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson. The Buffalo nickel had been admired for its artistry, yet it posed challenges in terms of production and durability. Its intricate details often wore down quickly, and the Mint sought a design that would not only be more practical, but also more enduring. The winning design for the Jefferson nickel came from Felix Schlag, a German-born American sculptor whose entry triumphed in the 1938 design competition. Schlag's obverse portrait of Jefferson was a bold, left-facing bust, drawing attention to the intellectual strength of the statesman, while the reverse featured a depiction of Monticello Jefferson's beloved Virginia home, though Schlag's original design underwent modifications imposed by the Commission of Fine Arts and the Mint. The final result was a coin that blended functionality with dignity. The Jefferson nickel would remain in production with various modifications for decades to come, and in 1940 it was still in its infancy as a series. Now let us focus on the historical backdrop of 1940. America was still recovering from the Great Depression. Franklin D. Roosevelt was leading the nation with his New Deal policies, while at the same time preparing for the possibility of war in Europe, although the United States would not enter World War II until December 1941. The events unfolding overseas were already influencing the American economy industry, and public sentiment coins struck in 1940, including the Jefferson nickel, reflected a sense of stability, continuity, and readiness for whatever challenges lay ahead. From a technical standpoint, the 1940 Jefferson nickel was struck in a composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel. The standard alloy used since the coin's introduction, the weight was 5 grams with a diameter of 21. 2 millimeters and a plain edge production took place at 3 mint facilities, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each producing millions of nickels. Yet with subtle variations that intrigue collectors to this day, the Philadelphia mint coins carried no mint mark. The Denver issues bore a small D mint mark on the reverse to the right of Monticello, and the San Francisco coins carried an S mint mark in the same position. Mintage figures for 1940 are significant. Philadelphia produced over 176 million nickels. Denver struck around 43 million, and San Francisco added nearly 40 million together. These numbers ensured that the coin circulated widely across the country, becoming a familiar presence in pockets, purses, and cash registers. However, within these large mintages, there exist varieties and conditions that make certain examples far more valuable and desirable than others to collectors. The strike quality varied depending on the mint, with some coins showing sharper details, particularly in Monticello's steps, while others suffered from weaker impressions, making the full step designations a key factor in grading. And value collectors of Jefferson nickels often focus on the so-called full steps designation, which refers to the clarity of the steps at the base of Monticello on the reverse. A coin that shows 5 or 6 complete steps without breaks or weakness is considered a full steps example. Such coins are scarce for many years of the series, and the 1940 issue is no exception. While millions of nickels were struck, only a fraction display fully defined steps, and those that do are highly sought after by specialists. High-grade, full steps examples can command impressive premiums at auction, especially when certified by reputable grading services. Beyond the technical details, the 1940 Jefferson nickel holds significance as a coin struck at a crossroads in American history. Collectors often view it as part of the pre-war era, when the design was still new and the nation was still at peace. Within just a few years, the composition of the nickel would change dramatically during World War II, when silver was used in place of nickel to conserve the strategic metal for wartime production. The so-called war nickels issued from 1942 to 1945 stand apart, but the 1940 issue remains a reminder of the last years before that dramatic shift in materials, errors, and varieties of the 1940 Jefferson nickel add another layer of fascination. Among them are double dies, repunched mint marks, and striking anomalies. Some examples show noticeable doubling in the inscriptions or details of Monticello. Others display mint marks that were punched more than once, creating overlapping impressions. These varieties may not be common, but they capture the attention of specialists who scour their collections and rolls of nickels hoping to uncover a hidden rarity. The condition of a 1940 Jefferson nickel plays a crucial role in determining its value circulated. Examples are abundant and usually hold little more than face value unless they exhibit unique characteristics. However, uncirculated coins, especially those with brilliant luster, sharp strikes, and full steps designation can bring hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on rarity and certification. The grading scale developed by the American Numismatic Association provides a framework for assessing these coins from circulated grades, like good and fine, to mint state levels ranging from MS-60 to MS-67 and beyond. Examples at the highest levels of preservation are exceptionally rare and form the pinnacle of many collections. Over the decades, the Jefferson nickel series has sometimes been overlooked compared to other American coins such as the Lincoln cent or the Morgan silver dollar. Yet it has gained increasing respect among numismatists for its longevity. Diversity and historical context, the 1940 issue in particular, has a special place because of its timing in history, its role in the development of the series, and its connection to Jefferson's legacy. As we reflect on this coin, we see more than metal. We see craftsmanship, design, symbolism, and history intertwined. The Jefferson nickel of 1940 speaks to the values of America, the admiration of its leaders, the continuity of its coinage, and the enduring connection between people and the money they use. Each example, whether worn from decades of circulation or preserved in mint state condition, carries with it stories of commerce, survival, and national identity. It is a coin that invites us to look closer, to appreciate the artistry of Felix Schlag, to consider the political climate of the time, and to understand the importance of seemingly ordinary objects in telling the extraordinary story of a nation. So when you hold a 1940 Jefferson nickel in your hand, remember you are not just holding 5 cents. You are holding the legacy of Thomas Jefferson, the creativity of Felix Schlag, the industrial might of the United States Mint, and the resilience of a nation on the verge of historic change. This small coin is a portal into the past, and a reminder of how even the simplest things can carry profound meaning. Imagine holding in your hand a small piece of American history, a coin that has circulated in millions, yet carries within it the story of decades of design tradition, minting practices, and the enduring legacy of one of the nation's founding fathers. This is the Jefferson nickel, minted in the year 1992. And although to the untrained eye it may seem like an ordinary 5-cent piece to collectors, historians, and numismatists, it represents a chapter in the ongoing story of American coinage that stretches back to the late 1930s. The Jefferson nickel was first introduced in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel that had been in circulation since 1913. The United States Mint held a design competition to honor Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States and the author of the Declaration of Independence. The winner was Felix Schlag, a German-born American sculptor whose design featured a left-facing portrait of Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home. On the reverse, this design would remain the basis of the Jefferson nickel for decades, undergoing only subtle refinements through the years. By 1992, the Jefferson nickel was already more than 50 years old and deeply embedded in American daily life. The coin was produced at multiple mints, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with Philadelphia and Denver striking circulation coins and San Francisco producing proof issues intended for collectors. The composition of the 1992 Jefferson nickel was the standard copper-nickel alloy of 75% copper and 25% nickel, a blend that had been in place since the end of World War II, when wartime silver nickels were discontinued in 1946. When examining the 1992 Jefferson nickel one, finds that the obverse continued to carry Schlag's original vision, though the details had gradually changed through master hub reworking and mint adjustments. Jefferson's profile was sharper in some issues, softer in others, depending on the die state and strike quality. His hair detail, collar, and cheekbone definition were all areas that collectors often study closely. The reverse of the coin still displayed Monticello with the familiar inscriptions E pluribus, Unum Monticello, 5 cents United States of America, and the mint mark placed to the right of Monticello, a small letter D for Denver, a P for Philadelphia, or an S for the San Francisco proof coins. The 1992 Jefferson nickel is also significant in the broader timeline of American numismatics because it came at a point just before several major changes in coinage design and production technology in the 1990s. The U.S. Mint was increasingly adopting more advanced die-making techniques, including the use of computerized hubbing, which would eventually affect the way design details appeared on coins. The 1992 issues still reflect the traditional die-making practices that linked them to earlier decades of minting, making them a bridge between old methods and the new digital age of coin production. For collectors, the 1992 Jefferson nickel presents several points of interest. First is the question of mintages. Philadelphia produced hundreds of millions of nickels in 1992, as did Denver, while San Francisco produced significantly fewer proof coins for inclusion in special collector sets. These proof coins struck on specially polished planchets with mirror-like fields and frosted devices are among the most attractive representations. Of the design, their low mintages relative to circulation coins make them sought after, though still affordable to most collectors. Another aspect of interest is condition collecting. Jefferson nickels often comes down to finding coins with strong strikes, minimal contact marks, and full step detail on Monticello. The full steps designation refers to the clarity of the horizontal steps leading up to Jefferson's home. On the reverse, only a small percentage of Jefferson nickels are struck. With sufficient sharpness to display all of these steps without interruption or wear. Thus, a 1992 Jefferson nickel with full steps, particularly from Philadelphia or Denver, can command a significant premium among collectors in high mint state grades. Certified examples with this designation are far scarcer than their general circulation counterparts. The 1992 proof Jefferson nickel also carries a special story, because it was produced at a time when the mint was experimenting with cameo contrasts and perfect mirror finishes on proof coins. Many 1992 S nickels display strong frosted devices against deeply mirrored fields, creating an eye-catching cameo appearance that enhances the artistry of Schlag's design. These coins can still be found in proof sets issued that year, but high-grade examples certified as deep cameo or ultra cameo are especially prized among numismatists. To fully appreciate the 1992 Jefferson nickel, one must also place it within the larger historical context of American coinage in 1992. The U.S. Mint was balancing tradition with modernity, continuing to produce long-established series like the Jefferson Nickel Washington Quarter and Lincoln Cent, while also preparing for new designs that would emerge later. In the decade, such as the State Quarter program, the nickel remained a workhorse coin widely used in commerce, but also cherished by collectors who valued the continuity of its design and the legacy of Thomas Jefferson. The coin also reflects the economic and cultural moment of the early 1990s in America, a time when the nation was experiencing technological advances, globalization, and shifts in currency use as credit cards and electronic payments grew more common. Yet the 5-cent piece persisted in circulation, serving as a reminder of tangible money in the hands of the people, a small but essential link to daily transactions and to a long lineage of U.S. coinage tradition. Collectors today often study the 1992 Jefferson nickel not only for its numismatic qualities but also as part of date and mint mark sets building complete runs of Jefferson nickels. From 1938 to the present, the 1992 coin fits into this long series and is a necessary piece for any complete collection while not a key date in terms of rarity. Its role as part of the early 1990s issues gives it value to those who appreciate the continuity of the series. One of the enduring appeals of the Jefferson nickel, including the 1992 issue, is the way it combines artistry, history, and accessibility. It is a coin that can still be found in pocket change, yet also one that can be pursued at the highest levels of collecting in top grades with full steps or deep cameo-proof finishes. It represents both the ordinary and the extraordinary, a coin for everyone and a treasure for those who look deeper. Thus, when you hold a 1992 Jefferson nickel, you are not merely looking at a 5-cent piece. You are holding a story that stretches back to 1938, to Felix Schlage's winning design, to Jefferson's Monticello, to the countless hands that have exchanged this coin in markets, stores, and banks, and to the enduring history of the United States Mint itself. It is a coin that reminds us how even the smallest objects can carry the weight of history and the promise of discovery for collectors across generations. Imagine holding in your hand a simple 5-cent coin from 1998, a Jefferson nickel that at first glance looks like ordinary pocket change, but behind its familiar face lies a story of American history, artistry, economic change, and numismatic value. A story that connects Thomas Jefferson, one of the founding fathers of the United States, to the mints of Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and to the millions of people who use these coins every day. This is not just a coin, it is a time capsule of 1998, a year of political events, technological growth, and cultural transformation, and when you understand its background, you will see that this Jefferson nickel is far more than just 5 cents. The 1998 Jefferson nickel continues a tradition that began in 1938 when the United States Mint introduced the Jefferson design created by sculptor Felix Schlage to replace the Buffalo nickel after a national competition. Schlage's winning design placed a left-facing portrait of President Thomas Jefferson on the obverse side, with the Monticello, his Virginia home, on the reverse, and it remained largely unchanged for decades, with only minor adjustments made to improve clarity and strike quality. By 1998, the design had already been in circulation for 60 years, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. And each piece struck that year carried not only the familiar imagery, but also the weight of tradition. 1998. Jefferson nickels were minted at both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities for circulation. While the San Francisco Mint produced proof versions for collectors, the Philadelphia Mint coins carried no mint mark. As was the custom at the time, the Denver Mint coins bore the D mark, and the San Francisco proofs carried the S Mint mark. These distinctions are crucial for collectors because they help identify not only the place of production, but also the relative rarity of each type. In that year, billions of nickels were produced for circulation, meaning the 1998 Jefferson nickel is not considered scarce in terms of mintage. However, the quality and condition of the coin play an enormous role in determining its value. Today, the obverse portrait of Jefferson in 1998 still showed Schlage's design, though by this point, critics had long debated whether the image truly captured Jefferson's likeness. Some considered the design too stylized, while others praised its classic look. But regardless of artistic debates, the portrait became one of the most recognizable American coin images of the 20th century. Jefferson faces left with the motto, "In God We Trust," along the left rim, and the word liberty written in his own script style to the right, along with the year 1998, and the mint mark when present. The reverse displays Monticello, Jefferson's plantation home with its neoclassical dome, and pillars beneath it appear the words, "Monticello 5 cents, United States of America," and above it, the national motto, "E pluribus." In terms of mintages, the 1998 Philadelphia Mint struck over 1 billion Jefferson nickels, while the Denver Mint also produced close to 1 billion. The San Francisco Mint struck several million proof nickels for collectors. These proof coins were made with sharp detail, polished dies, and special planchets, giving them a mirror-like appearance that sets them apart from ordinary circulation strikes. These proofs came in both clad and silver versions when issued in proof sets by the mint collectors. And numismatists often seek out high-grade examples of the 1998 Jefferson nickel coins graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC in Mint State 65, or higher can command a premium, especially those with strong strikes, attractive luster, and minimal contact marks. Full steps designations are particularly prized. This refers to the detail on the steps of Monticello on the reverse. When these steps are fully struck and show no interruptions, the coin becomes far more desirable since many nickels, even from fresh minting years, failed to achieve a fully detailed strike. Thus, full steps nickels from 1998 are not rare in absolute terms, but in gem condition with strong steps, they can fetch significantly more than face value the year. 1998 itself was significant. In the larger historical context, the United States was experiencing a booming economy driven by technology and the dot-com era. The Jefferson nickel in circulation reflected the everyday commerce of that time being used. In vending machines, parking meters, and countless transactions across the nation, it was a coin of ordinary people. Yet, in the hands of collectors, it became a window into both monetary history and the artistry of American coinage. The long-standing design of the Jefferson nickel would only remain for a few more years. After 1998 and 2004, and 2005, the Mint introduced the Westward Journey nickel series to commemorate the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition, and by 2006, a new forward facing portrait of Jefferson designed by Jamie Franke replaced Schlag's classic profile. Thus, the 1998 nickel represents one of the final years of the original uninterrupted design, making it historically important as part of the closing chapter. Of a 6-decade tradition, errors and varieties also add intrigue to the 1998 Jefferson nickel. While most coins struck that year were ordinary, some exhibit die cracks off center strikes, double die, obverses or reverses, and other striking anomalies, which are carefully studied by specialists. Such coins can transform a 5-cent piece into a collectible worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on rarity and condition. For 2 hours, one can explore not just the technical aspects of the 1998 Jefferson nickel, but also the cultural, artistic, and economic dimensions surrounding it. The sculptural decisions of Felix Schlag, the evolution of U.S. mint practices, the impact of circulation wear and collecting trends, the significance of proof coins and mint marks, the rarity of full steps designations, and the broader economic climate of 1998 all combine to paint a full picture of why this nickel is more than just a small coin in your pocket. It is a symbol of American heritage, a link between past and present, and a collectible that tells a story worth listening to in detail.